Hello and welcome to the podcast, The Possibility in Ruthless Compassion. I am delighted to be joined by my co-host and friend, Rivky Gross. We are going to jump into this flow, but before we do, I have a little cute story I wanted to share. So I'm gonna start with that. I was just talking to my son Yoni, who is out in yeshiva this year, and he told me, he's like, by the way, Mom, I some friends of mine over here, they listen to podcasts, so I figured I'd recommend your podcast. So I did. And now people are talking about energy, about perspective, about choices.
Wow.
And it just sounds like they all had a good conversation with you. I was like, well, here they are. Yoni is out rallying the troops and bringing them onto the frequency. And it's just really cool. It's really cool to, first of all, it's really cool to have a child that advocates for you. It's really cool because it's like the way that these things spread is through word of mouth. It's like by recognizing that I received something and something here spoke to somewhere inside of my soul. And so the opportunity is to pass it forward and just be like, hey, maybe this could be for you. You have a question about something. Maybe if you listen to this, so you can find some clarity or direction or inspiration or practice.
It's so cute. It's also so cute to know that there's like a bunch of 18-year-old kids in Israel talking about energy and perspectives and choices.
Anyway, so we're going to drop into some ruthless compassion. Almost sounds like an oxymoron, like this energy of ruthlessness makes me feel like, I don't know, kind of like edgy and almost like I want to be guarded around that energy when there's a ruthlessness. And then compassion seems like such a soft and inviting and warm and, energy and understanding almost like there's an understanding energy in compassion. So let's talk about it. What the heck? Honestly, what the heck?
Well, the term ruthless compassion was coined by me and one of my friends because she once told me after a session, she did a session with me and she's, Rivky, you were like relentless with holding the vision on the much more compassionate way. And no matter how many times I wanted to shame myself or I wanted to identify with something that like, you just held the compassion. And she's like, you didn't get fazed by my overwhelm and by my, and she's, it's kind of ruthless. It's like ruthlessness. There's almost no compassion in ruthlessness. It's
right.
And what we were saying, what we came to is there was no compassion in my being for having no compassion.
Love that.
And that's where that kind of term was coined. And so I walk into sessions actually with that slogan, like that tagline, because it's, a lot of times, especially when you're working with people in really delicate matters, the parts of them, they want to convince you that they're not worthy of compassion and care. They want to convince themselves. And those parts want proof that they're right. And to be able to hold an even stronger vision of what's possible is so incredibly important.
It's actually making me think of a sentence, which I'm just going to grab my phone. It's right here.
Yeah.
That I saw on Instagram the other day that kind of blew my mind. And I think it really brings this message. Okay, so this concept of some will question not because they care, but because they cannot see beyond their own limits. And I feel like that's like an important thing to notice, that oftentimes the thing that's hard for us to receive about essence is because of the limit that we believe about ourselves, or the limit that we hold about the world or about possibilities. And so if we hold a certain limit somewhere in our identity, somewhere in the way that we relate to the world, then whatever it is you're saying has to be crazy then. Totally. Or can't make sense. It can't make sense because it doesn't fit as far as my ability to understand goes. But essence is like touching a place that's beyond that, beyond the limited belief that we have of ourselves, beyond the identity that we hold ourselves to be, that is much more in touch with the part of us that's connected to the one, the part of us that's not limited by. I yesterday had the opportunity to drive out to Rivky and have my own private session, which was really incredible. And we went deep into places of identity, where it's not just about a behavior on the outside of myself that I find myself doing, but more about the behavior that is in reaction to some kind of belief that I hold about myself, not just in the idea, but in the identity of who I am.
Identity level.
Yes. And so when I am holding myself at a certain identity, then all things have to match what I'm holding.
Yeah.
They have to. That's
Yeah.
part of it. Because right now it's on a subconscious level. So I'm not even necessarily aware that this is where I'm navigating from. But all of if I get curious about my behaviors, I will come to understand what the limited belief is. And in that
Yeah.
work is when we discovered those places.
Yeah.
But until then, I am navigating from a subconscious limited belief about my identity.
Yeah.
Not even an aspect of who I am, but
No.
like an attachment to an idea that's not only a part of me, but became all of what I represent.
Yeah. And what's so wild is that those things are usually the most subconscious. So we will react in ways that prove the exact opposite of the thing that we so badly don't want to believe about ourselves. And I want to dive into your experience yesterday, but before we do it, I think I want to explain a little bit about what identity work is.
Yeah.
And like why ruthless compassion is so incredibly important for it. And then I think we'll be able to get into your experience and I can share about my own experiences with it. And I think that this podcast can also be really practical for everybody listening to this. We're going to leave you with the steps to work through identity work in the most easeful way. And so what happens is that when we're little children, we cannot separate shame from our identity. So what does that mean? That no matter if you've been through big traumas or little traumas, and this really answers the question, like some people, they're like, all my friends have went through so much and I didn't go through so much. Like, why do I feel so challenged inside? This really targets that question, because even if you experience really slight mismatches or misunderstandings or very small traumas, you still might have had big traumas on the level of your identity. If you were in a society that didn't celebrate essence, or if you were in a culture or a school or a religious environment that really didn't celebrate that. So I gave an example of a story that never happened to me. So if my mother's listening to this, which she is, just know that this didn't happen to me, but it's just an example. So imagine little Rivky, me sitting in a high chair, and my brother and I were sitting near each other in a little high chair, and I'm 2 years old and he is 1 year old. And we have these little cupcakes at someone's birthday party. And I look at my brother's cupcake and he has a different type of sprinkles. And I'm like, I want that cupcake. And I just take the cupcake and put it on my thing because I want it. So I take it. And imagine my mother that day, she looks at me and she's like, what the heck? Like this little slight look of, now my other kid's crying. I have 2 kids under 2 years old and now my other kid's crying. Like, that was annoying. And she just gives me a slight vibe of annoyance, right? I mean, that's kind of story happens every single day.
Every single day. Yeah.
No matter what. But what happens to the child? The child does not only what could happen to the child is that the child does not only start to believe that they did something selfish, they don't know how to differentiate what they did from who they are. So they might start to believe in that moment that they are selfishness. Now, they will do one of 2 things to compensate for that. One, they will become that which they believe that they are. So you're wondering why your child acting so selfish or unself-aware or whatever it is. It's because they believe that's who they are at the level of their identity. Or they will try so hard to not be that thing because they believe that's not a good identity or doesn't get them connection or belonging or attachment or whatever it is. So they will become, so that Rivky in the high chair will become the girl in all of the land. But what happens is that we can never outrun an identity. An identity creates an upper limit or a ceiling of what's possible for us. So when we have this identity sealed in and we're always living either in reaction to it subconsciously, there is only a certain amount of what we can receive because there is only a certain amount of what we can believe. So in Kabbalah, there's this idea that we are a channel, we are receptors, we are lekabel, we receive from the universe, Ein Sof, which is the limitless energy of the divine, the infinite. But what happens is if we are locked in an identity that part of us subconsciously is confusing with ourselves, unbeknownst to us, then what happens is that we only receive at the highest level of that identity. So some of us have some identities that are way less spacious. I've met people who believe they are shame or unworthiness or whatever. But then coupled with identities that are a little more spacious, there are people who believe they're better than everyone else, right? Or more special, but even those identities have a limit.
Yes.
So the person that has identity better than everyone else might have for some time a larger room to play, but at some point, even that ceiling is capped. Identity work is really important to do after a certain amount, just from a healing personal growth perspective. Is this helpful, Han? Am I
Very beautiful. Yes.
okay? Personal growth perspective, after we do nervous system work and other kinds of things like that, because in order to be able to acknowledge that identity and take that shadow into the light, we need to be able to have access to ruthless compassion for ourselves. And what ruthless compassion has inside of it, in my definition of it, is a radical or boundless or large capacity to stay with discomfort. And a certain amount of recognizing that our feelings are not who we are. So, and what I find is that identity work usually finds people, at least in my clientele, not when they're trying to heal, but when they're trying to receive more. So when they're on a path to, wait, why is there a ceiling to what's possible for me in love and abundance and in my marriage and my parenting? It feels like I'm bumping up against the ceiling. And usually we know we're believing in a false identity when there's a thought, an action, and a belief that's not matching. So for example, I want to wake up every day and pray and do exercise, but instead I'm waking up every day and I'm scrolling on my phone. So there's an upper limit that's right. That would be one example of many.
Well, I'd love to bring in what brought me to it myself personally.
Yeah. What was yours?
My desire was to be in my prime health.
Yeah.
To be in a routine that is both on a physical level, in doing some kind of exercise that is really good for my body, that feels right, that's, sculpting me into the person that at 41 years old is asking to be. And also with my intake, both in the way of food, in the way of honoring my body and recognizing that things that are really not feeling good, to stop eating those things and to create better structures for myself, and intake in general, like social media and other things that I felt like I was kind of losing grip a little bit and finding myself scrolling for longer than I wanted to. So I just wanted to become more conscious in the way of my intake.
So I'll interrupt you in the middle of each part just to explain to our audience. So there was something here where you were seeing how your desires, your actions, and your beliefs about yourself were not aligning.
Yes.
You saw, and there was an upper limit on what's possible, meaning it's like the old story of waking up. Today, I'm going to be on a diet. Tomorrow, I'm going to be on a diet. On Tuesday, I'm going to be on a diet. It's like kind of like that. Yeah.
Right. So what I was finding which was different than it used to be, because here's what happens also, is what I'm understanding, is that the belief will serve you for a while. It will motivate the thing that you want until it doesn't anymore.
Yeah.
Until it's exhausted and it no longer wants to show up like that anymore, because it's actually not the truthiest truth.
Yeah.
So in the past, when I've wanted to have things like this, I committed to it. And I was as disciplined as one can be. And I showed up no matter what. Hell, hand, rain, fire. I was freaking at it.
Yeah.
And I was like an advocate, and I was pushing, and I was doing it, and no matter what. This time around, I asked my body and my mind and my choices to do the same thing. I'm like, you want this? These are the structures. These are the things that would support it. Don't eat that. Don't eat after 7:00. Get up to do jump rope, get the jump rope, do the thing, whatever it was. But I was finding, and I was saying, dairy is really not good for me. And then what I was finding is that I'm standing over the stove making myself malawa full of cheese. And I was like, what's happening here? It's almost like this rebellious aspect inside of me that's fighting against the part of me that really wants the results that I'm asking for. Yet here I am, and here I am sabotaging my own experience. I'm like, what's going on? Something moved. Something is just not clicking the way it used to.
Yeah. And I'll share something that Kathy Heller once told me in a conversation. She said, at some point, the avatar is ready to retire. It's like at some point the avatar wants to go to sleep. So the avatar was cooperating and doing everything that you told it to do for a certain amount of time. And then at some point, because an identity is always going to collapse. It's in the Aleph base. It's in the Hebrew language. Sheker, which means falseness, only has one leg. MS, which starts with an Aleph, has two. There's two legs to stand on. And what I love to say from a place of ruthless compassion is, oh my God, look what I tell it to myself and to my clients and to my friends. If this is what you created from your avatar, holy freaking moly, what you can create from your soul. That is insane. This is what you created from an upper limit, from a ceiling on your energy. So I want you to tell, if you're willing, to like share with our community, what was the ways in which you prepared for identity work? You said, okay, I wanted to do this session. You want to do this session with me, but I want to kind of bring them into the importance of the intention and the activation of the will before we bring them into the process.
Yeah. I mean, you just said it, but I think that recognizing that desire is actually the will of Hashem.
Yeah.
Which is connected to that unlimited energy.
Mm-hmm.
And remembering that inside of my own soul, so that when I am confronted with the limited beliefs, I don't have to shame myself for it.
Yeah.
I can use this abundant energy that's inside of myself, that's coming from this desire, to be like, hey, like all things, we're only going to come to it when we're ready. We're only going to come to it when our nervous system can actually meet the new frequency that we are embodying now. Yes. And so I think that the question you asked me, which was super powerful, which I would love to share here.
Sure.
Which was, Rivky's, the question is like, are you willing?
This was before you even came.
Yes, before you came. Like, this is how I was being prompted into preparing for what we were going to address.
Pre-session phone call.
Pre-session phone call. It was a quick drop in, but we went straight to the point. And the question was, first of all, are you willing? That's the question in and of itself. But at the depth of that question was, are you willing to fall in love with yourself and marry yourself and not cheat on yourself anymore? Because anything that I am choosing to do that's sabotaging the desire that I have, that my will has, is actually cheating on myself and my own relationship, in my own loving experience with myself.
Yeah.
And so that was a really intense question for me, at least. I was just like, whoa, well, like when you put it like that, and recognizing that in some way, whether it's comfortable or uncomfortable to look at it that way, when I am making choices that are not serving the will, I'm actually kind of cheating, quote, on my will and on my desire. And it's only me. I'm the one doing it to myself. And so radical accountability with radical and ruthless compassion towards, I did what I did when I knew what I knew, but now that I can see it in a new light, I get to choose in a way that is so much more in alignment with the essence of who I really am.
Right. And the thing is that with identities, it's very easy to go to, and we'll talk about what the deepest identity is, which then all this will become very clear to everybody. But with identities, what happens is that they resist because it's what we call the famous ego death. It's the idea, what's the ego? It's any identity that was created from fear or some kind of illusion or something that's not fully true or some kind of pain that we took on to be who we are, not just a part of us, but who we are at our core. And most identities are not we're not actually aware of. They hide inside of our subconscious. So the only way to make them conscious is to shine a light on them. And that's a really scary thing for us to do. So in order to be able to do this, we need to have the nervous system capacity, but we also have to have the will to come to know that, okay, I'm going to be there and it might be a little bit challenging and I'm not going to go back to sleep. I'm not going to close my eyes. So what I told you on the phone as well, what was so cool, as you guys know, Chani and I do a podcast together and we are friends and we do retreats together and all those kinds of things. And we're so happy to be there to support each other. And Chani told me, she said, no, I want to pay you for this session. This is for me. I want to invest in myself in this kind of way. And I am going to take myself seriously in that way. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do that for myself. And then before she even got here, even though she paid me and even though she was going to drive all the way from Brooklyn in an inconvenient day to come to the session, I still told her, I was like, if you do not know 1,000,000% that you are going to leave with the result that you are coming to achieve, do not come. We will reschedule. And the fact that she came meant that she already created the quantum leap. She already shifted identity. Now, what we needed to do was uncover what it was so that we can do some forgiveness work for the misunderstanding that she had and for her soul to just forgive herself and her human and soul to meet and say hi and hang out. And then that's it. That's it. It's over. And, it takes a lot of, and I want you to get more into the story of it, but it takes a lot of, and I was talking to you about this last night, and I was talking to my client who came this morning, and I was talking to myself about it in my journal. It takes a lot of deep inner work and self-awareness to be able to come at things from a much more simple perspective. A lot of times we feel that we need to do one more healing session on this thing or one more. And it takes a lot of guts to be like, no, this is going to be the last time where I experience this, or this is good. And then follow through and make sure it doesn't happen again. And it takes not everybody's ready for that. Like today I was doing identity work with a client and she's, no, but it really is about the other person. And I paused for a minute and I said, this kind of language indicates to me that this work might not be where your nervous system's at. So we might just need to go back and not do this today. And the minute I said that, she snapped awake again and she's like, no, I don't want this any longer. I'm going to keep doing this, because you understand it is your choice.
Totally.
You can't pry an identity out of someone's cold, dead hands.
No.
Unless they're like, I am going to surrender back into the one. I am going to remember who I am. I am going to be the thing that I was before anything that I've ever done and anything that I've ever learned and anything that I've ever thought. We will never, ever change somebody. We will never fix somebody, and we will never save somebody. And the only thing that I can do is walk people through the steps that are authentic to me and what has unlocked a tremendous amount of life force in my own life. Other than that, but what I've been finding in identity work is that the more we do it with ourselves, the less we even need to teach it to others or tell them, no, we just need to literally need to be our frequency, our soul's essence, our I am, and be from that place beyond any of our identities. And then we just watch the dismantling happen all around us just by us existing. And I think that that's so beautiful. But keep going.
I mean, that was the initiation. So that was the way you primed me, and I really started to. So the part of me that's immediately activated is that responsibility one. Okay, so now I'm responsible to change everything, or to take responsibility for all the times that I've cheated on myself, quote, so it's my fault. It's not really, but that responsibility goes that deep if I really go to that place. I've come a long way from going to that place, but the part that generally comes up first is that level of responsibility. Which it is, because the choice is mine. So it kind of is my responsibility to myself, but it's shifting it to recognize that once I am no longer responsible to keep up the illusion, which is the false idea of what I thought the responsibility is, then I actually don't need to do anything. I could just be who I am. And all of that energy that I have been exerting towards defending the thing that I thought that I am, all of this time in every possible way, either, like you said, by overcompensating for it or by avoiding it altogether, like pretending it doesn't exist, which also takes energy. Now it's all that energy has become free, because I brought what was subconscious up to the consciousness, recognize that, like, it's true. I did believe that about myself. It's true. And the thing that I believe myself is also kind of a little bit irky, because it's in some ways it's everything I wanted to believe that I'm not,
Yeah.
right? But really,
Yeah.
it is something that I did believe about myself. Come to a place of being like, hey, that's okay. You did believe that. Because of that, you made some interesting choices in your life until this point. Now that you're
Yeah.
aware of it, can you forgive yourself
Yeah.
for that being in the that aspect of you being in the driver's seat and identifying with that aspect in a way where then you made all those choices and recognize that it's not true. It's not really who you
Yeah.
are. It's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
And that I am who I am, which is the essence of who I've always been.
Yes.
That doesn't require all that effort to either defend or prove in either way.
Totally. And the reason why I'm laughing as you're talking, because I'm thinking about how in many healing modalities, and it's important to meet the nervous system where it's at, but in many healing modalities, like it would be compassion, but not necessarily ruthless compassion. So what that would look like is, let's say you would say an identity that you realize, oh my gosh, this is a super cringy identity that you're believing in. Your practitioner might be like, why don't you tell us a word that's a little more comfortable for you to say? Right? Oh, it might minimize it to make it a little more comfortable for you so that you could swallow it a little more so that you could be with it forever somehow.
Oh, wow. I never even realized that. I've only been at the best experiences with Rivky Grow, so I don't even know what other practitioners do. So it's curious to know that.
Yeah.
I see.
And you do understand how that could
Yeah.
be. And
I mean, whoa.
in many healing experiences as well, because we can only take our clients as deep as we take ourselves, either they'll try to convince us that we're not that, or but they'll still believe that they are that. But they don't even know that. So
Right.
there's so much illusion. But what's so cool is that here in this work, what we do is in a scaffolded way with our will, with acknowledging our nervous system's capacity, which is so much larger than it ever was before, we go towards the thing that's the most cringy.
Yes.
Because we know that's the thing that's going to set us free. And I remember once my friend called me and she's, oh my God, I realized something about myself and I just cannot stop cringing. And I'm like, that's so fun. And she's like, really? And I was like, yeah, can I tell you how I learned that? And she said, yeah. And I remember I once had a conversation with somebody who I really respect, and I made the most awkward joke of all time. I could even cringe right now thinking about it. The most awkward. And at that time, I hadn't done identity work yet at all. So I believed that I was my action. So that day I was like, I am, in some way, there was a part of me that believed that I am awkwardness. How are you supposed to come back from that? Especially if I want so badly to believe that I'm like socially adept or whatever, like some other kind of thing that I want my identity to be. And I had this moment where I was in therapy or in mentorship with my mentor at the time. And I was like, I cannot stop thinking about this. I'm literally going to sleep and waking up in the morning thinking about a dumb joke that I made as if my ego could not give it up. I was like, I already apologized. I just couldn't let it go. I couldn't imagine that was also aligned with the picture that I have of myself. And of course, this is a very simple story, and some of us have much more challenging things that we've done or actions that we've taken that were not in alignment with our soul. That's much more alarming to us than a joke. But I'm just sharing this simple example. And I remember she's like something like, why are you being so full of yourself? You're human. Duh. Humans are cringy. Why are you holding yourself to this weird standard that's not giving you any peace? And I remember in that moment, I was like, oh, I really am being really full of not my soul, but I'm being full of my own bullshit. And it was so cool to be able to like notice that my peace was not found in the apology or the person thinking that I'm whatever. It was found in my humanity. And I think that part of recognizing that we are a soul and that we are our essence is also recognizing that we have a human part. And it's no matter what, it's not going to go away as long as we are in this body having this human experience on this earth. And in working with my clients, I think the biggest paradigm shift /ego death /identity death that they have is not that they're going to transcend the human experience, but that their freedom comes from being free of the illusion that they will. And then
Wait, write that down.
the freedom comes
Yeah.
from being free of the illusion that we will transcend the human experience.
Oh, okay. We got it.
But we will still be essence no matter what. So it's such a freedom to recognize that we are essence and we are having the human experience and we are responsible for our humans' actions and reactions and repairs and ruptures and weirdness and cringiness and whatever it is that we discover. But at the same time, that's not who we are, which makes it much easier for us to admit that we do it or said it or believed it.
Yes, yes. I think that's the key. I think about the book Transforming Darkness into Light by Rebbe Ginsburg, and he talks about separating being such an important part of the healing journey. Because so long as I'm identified with it and there isn't separation between me and whatever that it is, it's going to be really hard to move forward through it because it's stuck to me in all places. But if I could separate myself from it, then and I could also see it. I could be like, it's true. And that was part of the work, right? It's like, I recognize that I did that I did believe this. Yeah. And now that I recognize that I did believe this, it's not who I am. It's like what I recognize that I believed it myself to be who I am, but it's not. Mm-hmm. And so now I can forgive myself for believing that, which then led me to all of the things that I did in that trajectory because of that belief. And so now, once I've been able to recognize it and forgive myself from it, now I can just come back into who I've always been, which was the person without this identity that came on because my mother looked at me at a certain way that I decided that, oh no, I better navigate from this, or whatever happened to me in my childhood.
Something more challenging or something more challenging or something in your genetic disposition or something that you picked up in your society. And what's so cool is that, and we'll talk about it as we close, but what's so cool is that the 6 steps that we'll share soon really targets that. It helps you come back to the present moment to your identity over and over again without spiritually bypassing. But when do you do identity work? First of all, if you do those 6 steps often and you really get it, you don't even need to.
Yeah.
Most of the time. You really don't, because you're already getting underneath it. But sometimes for some people, in order to really understand that they are who they are, they need to move through some identity work stuff first. So it depends. It's different for each person. But the steps of identity work, should I share them with everybody so they can?
I think that would be great. Yeah.
So I'll give you an example from myself because I feel like that would be a good way to do this. Yeah. So on New Year's of this year, I took a few hours, turned off my phone and did some identity work. There were a few areas in my life where I realized that my desires were not matching my actions to meet those desires.
Right. So that's just for all of those listening, that's a beautiful way to be able to track your direction towards your identity work. It's like, if what I am doing and what I'm saying or my desire or what the behavior is are not matching up, this is a good place to start to be curious.
Right. And the truth is that in our, Western society, we do not realize, and in this new age, we do not realize the power of our free will. We have co-creative power with the divine. And some of my clients and my friends and my teachers are waking up to that. But this is the way that it is. And if our actions are not aligning with what we're desiring for ourselves, like, there is something going on. I believe that we can have a day where we come to the world and we really see the world like that. If I will something and I pray on it and I want it, it doesn't mean that the outcome, that's divine timing. But if my actions are not matching my desires, there's something going on here that isn't in alignment.
Yes.
So the first step is really admitting it, recognizing that until now, I believed not only that, let's say, for example, let me think of an example of something.
Well, I can bring in an example for myself.
So let's work through it. Imagine we're working through it now, even though you already did it. Okay.
Okay. So the thing that came up was I believed that I was incompetent.
Okay. Beautiful. Not only did you believe you were incompetent, you believed you were incompetence.
Incompetence, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Which is the most cringy thing for Hani to believe about herself, because if anyone knows Hani, you know that she's an incredibly competent human who gets things done and who's quick and practical and pragmatic. And to find that inside, that belief inside, took a lot of humility to be able to be like, oh, wow, something in this way that I'm overcompensating for that. I don't see that, but that's really something that I believe. Make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
So the first step would be, and I'm just going to, even though you've already done it, so you don't need to, but I'm just going to walk you through it. The first step would be to say these words, which is, until now, in some part of myself, I have believed that I am incompetence.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Until now, in some part of myself, or in a subconscious part of myself, I believed that I am incompetence.
Yeah, beautiful. And just take a minute to really, and I know it's really neutral for you, because I'm curious, is it like, does it feel really like?
It really does. It really
Yeah.
does. I really feel like we did
Yeah.
the work. It's kind of wild. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. So
Yeah.
the next step is just to really sit with that for a minute. Like, really just
Yeah.
sit with that, feel it in your body. Let yourself feel a little bit cringe or the awkward or the sadness. A lot of times grief could show up, or like anger. So just allowing yourself to sit with that. Then the next step is to either if you're doing it with yourself, to just play both roles, or if you're doing it with somebody else, do it with somebody who can see your soul, who's not so enmeshed with their own shame, because that's not a good idea. But what I would typically ask my client is, I would say, I'm going to play the part in this moment of the part of you that could see you for your soul. So I ask them, do you believe that I can see you for your soul? And they can answer honestly. And
Yes.
yesterday you said yes. So I'm going to ask you to say it to me again while holding eye contact, and just say it one more time.
Until now, I have believed subconsciously that I am incompetence.
Beautiful. Normally at that time, at that moment, if the person's ready to break out, they usually start laughing. Not every single time, but there's this moment of amusement or laughter that happens in that moment. So just, if that's what you notice in yourself, then that's really cool.
Cool. Love it.
Then we sit with that for some time. So sometimes if it wants to hold on a little bit longer, I will reflect back to the client. I will say, I see that. I see that in the way that you overcompensate. I see that in the way that you don't want anyone to see your weakness. I see that in blah, 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 blah. I see that in the ways that you don't do what you said you're going to do. Whatever, however it is, just say it straight up and just really allow them to absorb that. The next step is, I forgive myself for judging myself to be incompetent, or I forgive myself for believing that I am incompetent. It was not my fault. Something like that. Yeah.
I
So go
forgive
ahead.
myself for believing that I was incompetence.
Beautiful. And the truth is
that I'm not.
Yeah. So what is the truthiest truth?
The truth is I am who I am.
Beautiful. And then we just kind of sit with that. And what happens is that this work can unlock a tremendous amount of energy, and it seems very simple, but it actually really could. And sometimes our nervous systems don't actually know what to do with that level of expansion, which is why we hold on to the old identity, because unlocking that much energy would be very pleasurable. We would be experiencing life in a totally different frequency, in a totally different dimension, still inside of our bodies. And the unfamiliar is something that we tend to grip onto what is familiar. So that's often why we'll hold on to an old identity.
And also because there's something unknown on the other side of that. Like, at least
Totally.
its limit, I know. But once I release myself from the limited belief, and now I'm in a space of, I have no idea where this energy is going to take me. What's going to happen, almost vibes.
Totally. And what I have learned also, in many people, if you follow different people online and you see people who are sharing about success and abundance and all these kinds of things, especially around finances and stuff like that, many of these coaches and people do identity work. But the whole I found in those processes was that identities were being replaced for other identities. So let's say I was just telling this to you last night, but let's say somebody says, Han, I want to make $1 million, or I want to get into the relationship that I really want. So I'm willing to face the cringe. I'm willing to see what my upper limit is, what my ceiling is. So they're like, bravely, they go into this session with themselves or with somebody else. And they're like, I want this thing more than I want this old identity. So even though the identity is holding on so tight, I still want this thing. And they're like, okay, so what's the identity? And they discover, oh my goodness, I believe that I am worthlessness. Awkward, cringe, whatever. Okay, I could get over it. I could recognize. And then what happens is instead of saying I am that the truth is I am that I am, they create a new identity. So they might say, I am a love and light, awesome, energy filled business coach, right? And what happens is in that moment is that they created a more roomier illusion.
Right.
And
Right.
that works for some time until that avatar gets tired or until they want more than what that illusion allows for them. But if we return to Etzem, we return to Neshama, we return to I am that I am, Eheya Sher Eheya, the thing that is the part of God that is inside of us, that was, is, and always will be.
Yeah.
We are in the field of abundance. We are in the place of the infinite possibilities and probabilities. We become the possibility in the universe. And this takes a tremendous amount of ruthless compassion to have, because to be able to sit with our parts and not become them, to be able to sit with our feelings and not become them, to be able to sit with our awareness and not become them, takes a tremendous amount of ruthless compassion. And I was telling you this last night, and I know you because I am you. What happens in our coaching and healing experiences is that sometimes, we have these awarenesses and we're like, oh my God, I just found inside of myself this part of me that's judgmental. I found inside of me that's part of myself that's selfish. I found inside of me this part of me that's so special. Either direction. And we start to identify with our awarenesses, identify with our feelings, when those are experiences that we're having and awarenesses that we're having, but not who we are, not who we are in the core of our being.
Yeah. Yeah. And having that differentiation really allows for us to access the place that's Ojo Ter Tov, that's beyond the goodness that we could have ever imagined, because we're not in a space that's limited. And we can allow for the abundance that's beyond the limitations or beyond the ways that we think that it needs to come to us, to just be open vessels to receive wherever it's coming from and not limited to. So it's just such a beautiful transition where you are the same person ultimately, but energetically you are realigned towards the essence that you've always been. You're realigned to the place that you're remembering who you've always been, outside of the ideas or structures or reflections or whatever that kind of hold us away from that center place, that core Etzem place, that place that's always been, and that is soul, and that is connected to God, and that is the part of the one ultimately. Yeah. And the part that connects us all to each other ultimately. Yeah. Without that in the way, the space within the relationship between others becomes a limitless place where it doesn't have to be contingent on anything or conditioned on anything. It could be a love that is abundant and free and open and joyous and, generous. Totally. I feel like I experienced that this weekend witnessing my son, and he had such a beautiful way of bringing different friends together and introducing other friends to other friends to make friends with each other. And there was something there that didn't have any threat at all. There was there was an I am who I am, alignment. And so whoever you are, you could be all of who you are. It doesn't matter. Because if I am who I am and I can have ruthless compassion towards that inside of myself, then what I offer to everyone else around me is ruthless compassion to whoever you are, the Ayasha area that you are.
Yeah. Yeah. So beautiful. And but I want to go through the 6 steps really quickly. So maybe I'll just work through them right now.
Go for it.
So I can just do it in front of everybody.
Yeah.
So there's nothing new under the sun, similar to this identity work and similar to the steps. Everything comes from the teachers that come before us, and nature and God and the Torah and psychology and the wisdom that comes before us. But this is something that I've gathered in this way to honor the developmental journey, the nervous system, the soul at the same time, because I find that often, we live in a culture of not spiritually bypassing. We're like, we come from a culture of spiritually bypassing, and we've moved out of spiritually bypassing in many ways. And sometimes so much that we forget our own soul and we start to bypass our soul. So it's like and how do we do that? By identifying, feeling our feelings so much that we identify with them.
Yeah.
Not recognizing that we can feel our feelings without becoming them. So I created this process. It could take you a minute, and it could take you an hour, and it could take you a whole day. And I would call it the 6 steps or the renegotiation method or different things. And I was like a little bit not wanting to name it. And the reason is because I didn't want it to be another modality where someone's, okay, I need to do this work today. It just made me, I just don't think we need any more modalities. I just really don't. And then my friend Chava came to my house, and I taught her them, and it was like life-changing for her. And she told me, I've learned so many things. I've been on a spiritual path, and I've learned Eastern things and Western things and somatic things and breathwork things. And I learned all these tools. And I feel like this just gathers everything into a little suitcase. And it's like all of my tools in one place in the least cumbersome way. And I've done different people's like processes and inquiry processes and work. And this really feels like the least cumbersome and the most effective way to just return to your soul over and over again, whether you're away from it or whether you're actually just connected to it and you want to create from that space. And I'm naming it the method, because it's not a modality. It is literally the way to return to presence that includes every other way that I've learned so far. So Chava has named it the method.
Love it.
And what we do is the first step is simply, I am aware that I am aware. And what we're saying is that I am not my experience. I am aware that I am a human having an experience. Simply saying that. And for some people, that's an entire life's journey just to get to that place. So just recognizing, I am aware that I am aware. And I'm just going to do it with you guys. I am aware that I am aware. The second step is I feel. In the second step, no feelings are bad or good. They just are. You can say, I feel intense. You can say, I feel blissful. You can say, I feel numb. You can say, I feel neutral. You can say, I feel really sad. Whatever it is, you can have 10 feelings at once. So I'm going to just check in with myself and see how I feel right now. I feel content and curious. How do you feel, Han?
I feel really calm and eager.
Beautiful. Great. So, and noticing for everyone listening that feelings are fickle. So in 2 minutes, if, I don't know, someone would be banging on my door and I'm in the middle of a podcast, I might feel anxious and annoyed, right? Because feelings are very fickle. They come and go. And most of us, we create either from our awareness, from our feelings. We create from a lot of places that are really not very effective places to create from. Because when we're having a great day, we create awesome things. And when we're having a not such great day, we create some not such great things. So the next step is remembering that I am the steward of my own energy. And that's kind of what I was like showing, not telling you, when I was giving you all that will back of, even if you invest in this thing, and even if you drive to it, and even if you think you have the best practitioner, etc., nothing's going to happen if nothing's going to happen. So really remembering that we drive our own bus and nobody can drive it for us. And so it's just simply, I am the steward of my own energy. The next step is I am creating, or I will create. In every single moment, there's an opportunity to steward our energy, right? We can shake our hands, we can make a sound, we can take a breath, we can take a shower. And every single moment, we can create lunch and we can create a new business. There's always something to create. And what that step gives us is it reminds us of our agency. It reminds us of our sovereignty. It reminds us of how much more movement there is in any given moment. Even if what you create is opening up your arms, or a different posture, or space to feel your feelings, right? And the second to last step is I am. And it is remembering that I am who I believe myself to be and embody. So for those of us who have tried affirmations and have not experienced results from them, the reason is because an affirmation without embodiment equals bullshit.
I love that.
Because what happens, we can say, I am beautiful, but if we really feel like we are ugliness, it's not going to penetrate on any level that's deeper than the surface.
Yeah.
So the way that we work with that is simply by choosing to believe something about ourselves and then embodying it. And it's never an action, it's always a state of being. So it's not I am loving, but I am love, or not I am generous, but I am generosity, because those are the state of being of that word. And let's say, you want to believe that you choose to believe that you are generosity. Then in that moment, you can do something generous towards yourself or somebody else, so that not only are you saying you're the thing, but you're showing, not telling yourself that you're that thing. And the reason for that step is to move into more expansive aspects of the divine, because we can never create abundance or manifestation, quote unquote, from a contractive state. We have to create from a more abundant state. Lastly, the last step is I am that I am. And what I am that I am does is kind of funny and ironic, but it tells you that all the steps you just did doesn't even touch the essence of who you are. And you're not even your awareness. And for people to get to the fact that they are their awareness could sometimes take them a whole lifetime or many lifetimes. And then it's like,
Totally.
you're not your awareness. And then for people to start to feel their feelings can sometimes take them 2 lifetimes or 10 lifetimes. No, you're not your feelings. And then for people to remember, you're not even the steward of your own energy. What? For people to admit that they're the steward of their energy takes them so much. And you're not even your creations. You're not anything that you do, not anything that you don't do. You're not anything that someone else does. And then you're not even who you believe yourself to be and embody, though. So who are you? And who we are, and this is the energy unlock, is I am that I am. I just simply am. I am essence. I am that which is unexplainable. I am an aspect of the divine. And the more time we spend in that place, first of all, from that place, it's so easy to be honest about our shadows, because we recognize that it's simply a shadow. It's not so challenging. It's so easy to have ruthless compassion and radical self-love for ourselves and others from that place.
Totally.
Doesn't mean we don't have boundaries. We're still human.
Yeah.
From that place, it's so much easier to feel our feelings, because we simply say, I feel my feelings. I'm not my feelings. And then we feel our feelings. And what we can create from the place of the state of being is so much like infinitely larger than what we can create from any identity that has a subconscious upper limit or ceiling.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for being with us. This was epic. What a beautiful and generous offer of these beautiful steps to consider. Allow it to land inside of your body. And yeah, I'm so grateful that we did this podcast. Ruthless compassion. Who knew?
Who knew?
All right. Until next time. Love you guys. Au revoir.
Au revoir.
We are so humbled and delighted to have you with us. Our podcast is Real Life in Real Time, where we embark on curious conversations that expand our awareness and capacity for all that is possible.
The Possibility of the Universe podcast is only possible because of you, our audience. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thanks so much for being here, and thanks so much for listening. I'm Chani. First and foremost, I am a believer. I am a wife, I am a mother of 6 beautiful children, and I am the owner of Grassroots Brooklyn, an experiential art collective and floral atelier. I am also a life coach working with both individuals and couples to empower them to step into all of their own possibilities in this universe. You can find me on Instagram at Makom Sanctuary, and on my website, www.grassrootsbklyn.com.
Hi, I'm Rivky, and I love life. I love heart-centered living. I love to be curious, and I love to connect with all things. I started off as a social worker and developmental therapist, and now I work as a somatic and subconscious practitioner, using modalities such as somatic healing, breathwork, body work, hypnotherapy, and some really magical and incredible quantum healing technologies. I work with individuals, couples, run retreats and courses using these modalities to help people find the most freedom, presence, aliveness, and embodiment inside of their lives. The ways to contact us are through my website, rivkygross.com. That is spelled RIVKY dash, the straight line dash, gross, GROSS.com. You can also follow us on Instagram, Chani at Muckhome Sanctuary, and myself at Rivky Gross. We are here for any and all questions and feedback through the contact form on the website, and we're so looking forward to hearing from you.